The vet is in on KFGO. Dr. Derine Winning is here from Valley Vet on Main Avenue in Fargo. Welcome back to the studio.
Hey, it's great to be back.
What is happening at Valley Vet this summer?
It's been a busy summer.
Has it?
Yeah, we've had a lot of ear stuff going on. There's a lot of dogs coming in right now.
Do you think that's associated with the high number of swimmer's itch cases?
Well, I think that a lot of these dogs, they're going to the lake, they're getting water in the ears. And one good thing as a pet owner, as a dog owner in particular, to consider is when your dog is done with the lake, maybe just go ahead and clean out the ear with a good high quality ear cleanser. Something that acidifies the ear canals a little bit and is very gentle and doesn't disturb the tissues down deep in the ear. Those things are one step in the right direction to trying to prevent ear infections. And then some of them are just allergy related. They just have allergies, and this is the time of year. As we start heading into the late summer, early fall, it tends to be the hot time for skin and ears.
This is also the time when, like you said, the skin too, where you can see maybe some scratching, or maybe there are patches where they've lost some fur. What do you do about that, and when do you kind of make the call to come into the vet?
If your dog has areas, or cat for that matter, has areas where the hair coat is thinned out or is gone completely, or is really red skin under the hair coat, crusting, sometimes you'll see excoriations on the skin from scratching. That's not normal. And those dogs need to be seen. And cats, on the other hand, they can get red crusts on the skin. Sometimes that's from allergies. Sometimes owners dismiss it as, oh, my cats were just playing and now there's a scratch on the temporal region, the area that's got a little less hair between the ear and the eye. That area, sometimes you can see red crusts form, and that actually doesn't have to be from trauma. It can be from allergies. So we need to pay attention to that in cats too, and just make sure you get your cat in if you're starting to see that on a regular basis.
Can animals get sunburns?
They can.
Okay.
Yes.
How can you judge that? How can, it's easy on me, right? Because I go from pork chop white to, lobster red.
Yeah. So some dogs prefer to be out there and sunbathe, and they'll lay on their back and sunbathe with their tummy up to the sky. And so either you have to try to get those dogs not to be laying out during certain times of the days where the sun is going to cause damage to the skin. Sometimes you can see redness. Sometimes you can see hyperpigmentation where the skin starts turning a darker color, in which case that can be due to irritation, chronic irritation. And there are some sunscreens available for dogs. You just have to be very careful about what you select, and otherwise just keeping them from exposing their skin. The nice part about dogs is that, of course, they've got hair, so that prevents a lot of the problem.
Someone wants to know, do lakes with swimmer's itch affect dogs, and will that transfer to people? Like, are they impacted by that?
They can be, but not to the extent that people are.
Okay. Someone says, dog's ears, how about kitty ears? Two of my indoor-only cats, Mari and Jager, have filthy ears. I clean them often. What causes it?
There are some cats out there that just really have waxy ears. And when we see them at the vet's office, and we'll do a cytology to make sure that there's no pathogens in the ears. And a cytology is where we take a sample of the earwax and we put it on a slide and stain it with special stains, and then look at it under the microscope. And some of those cats don't have an infection. They just got dirty ears. They produce earwax. In those cases where it's not bothering the cat and everything, it's just a waxy buildup, go ahead and clean it. You can just wipe them clean with some routine ear cleanser. I like to use Epiotic. It's safe for dogs and cats. It's very gentle and it doesn't stink.
I like that idea because I find a lot of stuff that we use on pets can really have an odor to it.
Stinky.
Yeah. And some people try to use vinegar or hydrogen peroxide in dogs' ears. I don't recommend that. Vinegar can be very irritating to the delicate skin on the inside of the ear. And so if you can just use something like Epiotic, that's always better.
Okay. Another question for the vet. What are good allergy medications for a dog? Example, Zesty Paws Allergy, Immune, and Probiotic Chews.
So I prefer, if you are going to do a supplement, always look for the NASC seal, NASC. It'll have it right on the side of the bottle. And that just means that it's gone through independent quality testing through this organization, and that if they say something is in the bottle, it's actually in there because it's been tested. So NASC seal is important for supplements. As far as what can we do prescription-wise, there's a wide array of things that we can use for dogs for allergies. So you start with the supplements on the non-prescription side. You can also use antihistamines on the non-prescription over-the-counter side. You need to talk to your vet about those options and what dose to use for your dog. And then you start getting into things like prescription antihistamines or prescription anti-itch allergy medications, which can be pills or injection. And then sometimes we end up doing allergy testing too for some of these dogs, because that's just, the extent of their allergies is beyond what pills can do.
I'm also dog pills versus dog liquid medications, right? So do you have a preference one way or the other? Because I found that at one point for us, giving a liquid medication seemed to be easier, because if he doesn't want that pill pocket, when I'm trying to get him to take that pill, it is almost like trying to get a kid to sit on a potty when they don't want to.
Yeah. I always tell people liquids can be easier, but the problem with liquids that when you get them in the dog's mouth and if they decide to spit it out, things like gabapentin, metronidazole, both of those compounds are very bitter. And so you can get them in the dog's mouth, but you don't know what they just spit out. And so that can be hard. Sometimes with a pill, you know if it's in or out. You might find it on the floor a couple hours later, but you know that your dog didn't get the pill. So liquids, while they can seem easier, as long as it's not too bitter of a substance that we're mixing into the liquid, it might work better for some.
Do a lot of medications come in both a liquid and a pill form, or are you locked in on certain ones?
More and more all the time are coming with options for that. However, especially for cats, because cats are tough. Mm-hmm. However, if something only comes in a pill form, a lot of times we can do specialty compounding through a specialty compounding pharmacy that makes the medication from a bulk substance into whatever formulation you want, specifically made for that animal. It can be more expensive than what you buy, that's manufactured, but that's the only option we have sometimes.
I don't remember seeing it on many pill bottles for my pets, but are you able to crush most medications? Because if I can throw that with a little bit of gravy, boom, done, mm-hmm. Easy, no sweat.
Yeah, some medications you can crush, some you can't. And there are some supplements too that you can crush and some that you absolutely cannot. So you need to, if there's concern about, hey, how am I going to get this medication down my pet, talk to your veterinarian, because they can come up, even like with cats, sometimes we'll resort to transdermal, or meaning a form that absorbs through the skin. We can resort to that. However, the absorption rate through the skin is not the same typically as what you would get from an oral medication. So we have to just be aware of that. But if that's the next best option, aside from not being able to get the medication, then we do what we have to do.
Mm. Do you have any tips, anything that you've learned, or anything from any patients who have been like, hey, I found weird success with blank? Because at one point, I know when we were giving our dog the anti-seizure medication. Those pills were huge, and the dog didn't want to eat to begin with because she was so sick. So we wrapped it in American cheese and we put it in a pill pocket. And then we were like, well, we'll give half and half, and, we'll break it in half so it's not as big. And it became one of those things where I felt, as a pet owner, a failure because I could not get the dog to take the medication that the dog needed to take. And then all of a sudden you got a dog that you're trying to take care of who doesn't want anything to do with you in that time because they don't want to get back into it. So
right.
Do you have any tips?
I think the hard part with this is that there are some animals. We were talking previously about cats. Cats control what's going to happen. I mean, we can think that we're going to do something, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. But with a cat, they decide, if they're going to take a pill or whatever. So the best thing that I can say to you, number one, don't get bit. Number two, sometimes you have to just, use a pill shooter and, put the pill in a pill administrator and just shoot it down the back of the throat. In those cases, however, I'd recommend a water chaser behind it just to make sure it does get down to be fair to the animal. But sometimes that's what you have to do.
I saw something in Chicago I wanted to bring up to you that I thought you'd love, which was a food truck, but it's for dogs. And they handle they must have had 60 kinds of dog treats in there, but then they also had fresh, made at home dog food that you could buy and then serve to the dog. I'm like, oh my gosh, a dog food truck? This is a genius idea. And they had plenty of customers in that little neighborhood that we were at.
I bet they did. It's like the ice cream truck going through.
It is, right? What is the dog food truck play for its song?
The dog whistle.
Is it how much is that dog? The dog whistle. That might be what it is, Amy. Might just be a dog whistle.
The vet is in on KFGO. Dr. Winning is here taking all of your pet questions. Let's talk about bathing. Should you, at the beginning of the show, everybody wants to know about swimmers itch affecting dogs. You said the ears are really bad. Should you, I know sometimes we can overbathe our dogs, especially. They don't need as many baths. I have noticed, though, that the dogs, the cats, I just keep saying they're molting. Yes. Sometimes you don't find much hair around your house at all. And then other times, maybe because it's been super hot, are dogs and cats molting right now, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, they're going to go through, their hair follicles will go through cycles. And so I know a lot this time of year will be going through their shedding cycle, and that's normal. But the thing you need to keep in mind with shedding, because we do have people come in from time to time wondering about, oh, my dog seems to be losing more hair than normal. Well, it can be very normal to lose a lot of hair. The thing that I tell people usually is if you're noticing bald spots on your dog, that is not normal, and that's something that should trigger a vet visit. Or if you're seeing red, irritated skin, that should trigger a vet visit. So use your judgment if you think, gosh, this is beyond the normal that I've seen every year for my dog. But definitely, if you're noticing bald areas, needs to go in.
Okay, but if you're not, and you just get more of the shedding, or your dog has been in the lake, is it okay to maybe kind of overbathe in the summer for that hair or that lake water?
Yeah, so sometimes when they have skin conditions, we'll bathe a couple times a week.
Okay.
But it'll be with special shampoos that are meant to be used that often. The dogs that are going into the lake, I mean, most of us are going to the lake probably every weekend, and so you're probably going to have to bathe at the end of the weekend and just get all the crud out of the hair coat, or at least rinse them once a day, after they've been in the lake. So bathing is going to happen more in the summer. Now, how can you moisturize the skin? You can do it one of two ways. You can do it from the outside in, and I'll use something like fish oil. Nordic Naturals or Well-Actin are good brands to consider. And from the outside, Dermacent makes a spot-on product that you can just squeeze on the skin on the back of the neck. It has a really nice, I don't mind the herbally scent to it, but that's something that you might not like about Dermacent, but it does work. I've had people with cats try Dermacent. I've had people with dogs try Dermacent, and it seems to help.
Interesting. The vet is in here on KFGO. Dr. Derine Winning is here taking your pet questions. Someone says, what is the best method for cutting out matted hair in the belly area?
A groomer.
Oh, yeah. Well, that could
or yeah. I know that wasn't the answer you wanted.
But that was a good answer, though. I mean, in fairness, like if it is a really sensitive spot, that is the best choice, probably.
It is because, I've seen over the years, I've been practicing 30 years now. I've seen people taking scissors out, trying to cut a mat out and cutting their dog's skin. And I've seen it with eyelids. I've seen it with inguinal, groin areas, the flank area. It's just not even worth it, in my opinion. Don't get the scissor out because it's not worth it. Your dog makes one false move and you've got to cut. And in between the paw pads too is another place that I see it. Clippers. Some people use clipper guards. Let me tell you, you can still cut with a clipper guard on. And I think about that every time that I'm grooming my dogs and I'm using a 7F blade and going down their flank area and thinking, this, please don't move. This could end badly if you move. So it's not something that I would, if you have really tight mats in a tender area, I probably would just get a groomer to do it. I mean, groomers are good at what they do.
Yeah.
They do it every day.
They have specialty equipment too, right? Which also makes a difference. The harnesses that can hold your pet and safely, so that if they do kind of buck, they're not going to do anything bad.
Well, and one thing that I didn't realize, since I do groom my dogs, I noticed. This was many, many years ago when I first started, that one of my dogs would really act up when I was trying to clip her coat. And I didn't think of this, you guys. I had a dull blade. And when I went back and thought about it, I had to talk to my hairstylist who does my hair. And I'm like, yeah, my dog's really acting up when, all of a sudden now when I'm grooming her and she's just being a just naughty little thing. And she said, well, how old is your clipper blade? And I'm like, yeah, that's probably it. And I changed blades and she never had a problem again.
Interesting.
So the clipper blades will pull hair as they get dull and it hurts. So, or it feels uncomfortable to the dog.
What about tear stains? Mm-hmm. Because I know, like with my poodle, we deal with tear stains all the time. And it's like, okay, we finally get up with it and we do the washcloth to soak it, to loosen it. And we have a miserable night and we promise we will stay on top of this. And then 3 months later, we're doing the exact same thing all over again.
And have you found anything, JJ, that helps resolve tear staining of the hair coat?
Dr. Winning, we have tried 7 or 8 different products that you apply like at night. Some of it makes our poor poodle look like a drowned rat afterwards. And some are like, they seem like they're almost Vaseline based. Mm-hmm. Some are liquid. Some you put on a cotton ball. Everything. We have not found a product that has worked.
Yeah, I have not over the years either found something that consistently works. There might be some people that, have different anecdotal things that seem to work for them, but I myself have not found anything that's foolproof. So, and you bring up a good point with the matting in the tear clumping of the hair coat around the eyes, because that is a very, very delicate area, and trying to clip away mats on eyelids. I've had many, many puppies come in with their hair matted over their eyelids, some of the Shih Tzu type breeds or Lhasas that just have that longer hair coat, and the owners don't know yet to keep on top of that. And so they'll come in with mats right at the inside corner of their eyes, and trying to trim that out. I've seen many eyelids cut that way. So, it's best to just, either stay on top of it, like you said, or have a professional handle it.
A question here, 35270 says, what are hot spots?
Hot spots is a case of the medical term would be moist dermatitis or bacterial pyoderma. And they're areas that the hair coat might initially get a little wet, or the dog might scratch the skin in the area due to allergies. And there's bacteria that gets introduced into the skin, and they form these pustules. And then it just spreads like wildfire. It usually happens when I think of a traditional hot spot. One of the most common areas is going to be the cheek right below the ear. And summer, I've already seen many of them this summer. They're just golden retrievers, typically golden retrievers. It's usually the larger breed dogs that like to go in the water and swim around and have a longer hair coat, but it can happen to some, Labradors too. So
we have friends who are moving up here, and they brought their outside cat and their inside cat. We're babysitting the inside cat until they move up, but the outside cat went to stay with friends at the farm, and they were about like 100 miles outside of Denver, and this cat had an accident in its kennel, and so they pull over to deal with it. And it's at that time that they kind of are looking at this outside cat who normally doesn't stay around the family that much, but it had like a pus-filled sac on its neck from where it had gotten into a fight with another cat or something, and it had become infected. Long story short, this thing decided at that moment to burst. And I said, well, gosh, did you bring it into the vet? And they said, well, no, because it's our outdoor cat. We don't bring the outdoor cat to the vet. And I said, I feel like you still should bring the outdoor cat to the vet, because just because they live outdoors doesn't mean that they shouldn't, require some medical attention and an overall checkup every now and then.
Yeah, and it can be easy with people with cats, especially if you have somewhat of a fractious cat that becomes belligerent in the vet's office. It's easy for owners to say, I'm not going to bring them in this year. And so they only come in if there's something dire, or if they need a rabies vaccine. And I am here to tell you, we're used to dealing with that. There are ways around that. And we can make this easy on the cat and therefore easy on you just by giving some medications beforehand. So, or sometimes we have to sedate the cat once they get to the office too, just to take a look at them and get blood samples. But cats need to be coming in at least once a year. Once a year if they're younger, twice a year probably if they're older, because kidney disease, thyroid disease, all these things start creeping up, and you want to catch them early.
What happens when your pet gets into a tussle with a wild animal? So anything from, let's say, ends up eating a squirrel, goes to, gets into a fight with a larger animal out in the woods near the lake. What should you do if your dog comes back and it looks like it's been in a fight?
Yeah, the first thing you're going to want to do, always make sure your animal has its rabies vaccines. All vaccines, for that matter, that your vet recommends is, a good annual conversation to have with your veterinarian about what do I need for my dog. And if it does come into contact with a wild animal, it's going to depend on what the wild animal is. But sometimes, the best thing to do is call your vet's office. They'll make recommendations based on, is your dog current on rabies vaccine or isn't it? And then we'll go from there about revaccinating for rabies or not.
Any tips for getting rid of skunk smell?
Because
there's a lot of old wives' tales
Yeah.
that I think sometimes can be kind of dangerous to your dog's skin and fur.
Yeah, I haven't, my dog several years back got sprayed by a skunk out on my farm, and there's stuff that helps. You can mix up your own recipe of, what is it, peroxide and dish soap. And
yeah, I hear tomato juice too.
Yeah, tomato juice and all that. But I haven't found anything that really if your dog really gets sprayed, I'm sorry, but you're going to be dealing with it for, a little while.
Let nature take its course. Same thing with the dead fish smell.
Well, I don't have this much experience. I'm not a fisher person.
I don't get why dogs have the smell of sense, or the sense of smell,
Yes.
4,000 times us,
Yes.
and they roll in a dead fish.
Yeah, I had.
That's actually a really good point.
I had out at my place. They brought the cattle out to my place a couple of weeks ago. And so now the dogs are finding stinky stuff to roll in, if you get my meaning. And Chippy came back to the house one day and I needed to pick him up real quick. And I picked him up and I was like, what stinks? And there was smeared all over me cow poop. Who knows what kind of, corpse that he'd rolled in. And it had soaked through my shirt into my skin. This is farm life.
No.
It is farm life, isn't it?
So we managed to get that smell out of him.
Okay.
For the most part. Unless he gets wet again, then I can smell it. But we're working on it.
The vet is in here on KFTO. Okay, Dr. Winning, let's get to just a few of these. Someone says used women's makeup wipes for dogs' eyes. So a little tip. Are we out of tick season? Someone wants to know.
They're starting to slow down a little bit depending on where you're at. Lakes in Minnesota, I feel like they never slow down.
Yeah, true.
So North Dakota, probably getting there.
Okay. Someone else says our dog got sprayed by a skunk. Barbasol shaving foam worked awesome. Just smelled like he had a fresh shave. That's cute. I love that. Someone said there's a book called Old Spouses Tales About Animals written by a vet named James F. Gaines. In it is a great recipe for skunked pets. So there you go. There's another tip. And Dr. Winning, if people want to come and see you at Valley Vet, how do they get a hold of you guys?
We're at 3210 Main Avenue here in Fargo. Our phone number is 232-3391. And we're online at valleyveterinary.net.
Thank you so much. We'll see you in August.
See you next month.